Always on, all the time.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food?
Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp,
Tofu and rasta pasta?
Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock
In downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m.
Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock
In downtown Atlanta.
For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992.
Or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com.
For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant.
Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Q Time is our classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavill, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay. Just tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Bill, Mike and Charles, and I'm Time.
What up, world? It's your boy Rob Calloway, host of the HBCU.
Welcome to episode 77 of the Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KSUH 1230 AM partner in the studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. the campus of the Sport Management Program at the undergraduate level with the BS, at the graduate level with the MS in Sports Studies and Sports Leadership. Professor Charles Bishop finished from that program. Just to let you know. That's how we do it. Yeah, you with me. You see him. Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, Dr. Ville's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. As we open up another show, gentlemen, it's on for us. How you all doing? Starting with Mike, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Just another week, another dollar out here in these COVID-19 streets. Well, actually not in the streets, but dealing with this COVID-19 business on a corporate level and on so many other levels. But other than that, blessed, highly favored, and just happy to be here on your show, Doc, and with my compadre CV. That's another week and another day of fun, baby.
Man, that's cold. That's cold-blooded. Did he have to just put me out like that? He said, "Oh, my show." I appreciate it. I appreciate that, big brother. As you continue to haze all these years, I'm like, "What you did, man?" I just don't get it. But with that, I was gonna put them hands on you though for sure. You talking about you was in the streets. I'm glad you cleared that up. COVID-19, I ain't trying to have. So with that, with my other colleague, since I just had Professor Mike Washington show out a little bit, let me go to Professor Charles Bishop, the other part of the triumphant, if you would, and part of this team. How you doing, Charles?
Doc, I'm getting it in now. We big on getting a little exercise in, whether it's biking or running, and trying to get this little golf game tight during this pandemic, and
I
social
heard
distancing
that.
during that. So.
I heard that. I actually called you today to give you an update, some questions in regards to some hot topics that we may have on the show. And he breathing Mike like he chasing somebody. I was like, oh
yeah. Now, did you see the score?
Hey,
a couple of weeks. Was it under 80 or something like that?
I saw that. Yeah, now, I'm not trying to hear all that.
This is Charles Bishop flossing right now.
Yeah, he flossing. Got the little vest on, half a sleeve out. You see how he cocked that sleeve up there?
Yeah.
Chicken wing to make sure everybody saw.
Trying to show that little bicep? Yeah, I see it.
Man, the team is full of it. But no, it's good, Charles. I'm glad to hear you getting the workout in. You see your boy. I got an announcement for the people. I want to say thanks to all the people that have been supporting us for the show, particularly me. I've transformed my look, and I say transform my look, not necessarily more the fro, as many of y'all have engaged me and talked and teased me a little bit about that. But in terms of the weight, loss, I am at 60 plus pounds. People,
congratulations.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's huge.
But you all are part of the team, and you all are taking off that work and that weight yourselves, but y'all didn't have as much as I had to go. So, y'all taking 10, 12, 7 pounds off here and there. So that's good work. So just want to say, you see us. So we challenging everybody else out there, COVID-19, a lot of that has to do with your health. So we saying, not only mask up, not only wash your hands, not only social distance, when possible, in regards to a lot of y'all are having to get out there and work, and we understand that. But I want to even challenge the part we say social distance, because we're distancing, but we still finding the socializing. You're doing this right on with us from the show. Let me give some shout outs from our listeners. We're going to jump out and cherish you all for a minute before we get in some of this news, because of what you're doing. With that, we have Chuck Hunt jumping in there. Mike over there. I don't know what Mike trying to get fixed over there.
I don't know. Sorry about that.
Chantel Fleming, Aggie Pride. Yes, indeed. Todd Jackson, Texas Southern Tigers. When the P5 break away, what should the SWAC and MEAC plan be? I'll talk a little bit about that. Don't get too excited. Those folks are trying to sell articles. I don't really think the P5 going to break away. They have all the power now. They just trying to get more power, which is crazy. Ed Drayton. Brother Ed Drayton. He's checking us out. Frank Nelson, Carlton Gray. Yeah, Ed Drayton, Prairie A&M University, getting it done. Frank Nelson, Texas Southern University. Fred Whitten, Todd Jackson. Jimmy Wilson, Prairie A&M, getting it done. A.D. Drew, FAMU in Tuskegee. Thomas White, Southern University. A.D. is on here giving us that Willie Alex Hines, Alabama A&M. These folks are all in the house, giving us much love. Appreciate you. Tim Johnson, brother Tim Johnson, Timothy Johnson, Alpha Extraordinaire. He got me active again in the chapters at the graduate level. So I really appreciate that, brother.
He has me motivated too. I'm still
He's putting in that work. And what he's doing on Facebook with the brothers Alpha, providing that information updates, man, he has it going on out there. I got to add some of his secret. We might need to borrow that. But he's always saying, share the information. He shares the show on that platform, so I appreciate it. Ricky Burton getting it done. Harold Babbitt, James Wright, Carolyn Jenkins Summerlin, Wendy Jenkins Bishop. Shout out to the first responders over to getting this done in a lot of ways. Marcus Compton, Hillman Frazier. Just give some love. Kim Washington is showing us some love. Thank you, sister. Joe
State Senator Hillman Frazier.
Is that right?
State Senator Hillman Frazier. Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, State Senator. Make sure we get that right. Shout out.
Big time. Shout out.
Chris Johnson, Derek Jones, James Knox, Frederick L. Simmons, Otha Roberts, getting it in there. We'll give some more love. Y'all keep it going. Y'all share the page. Give us out there, and we appreciate all the love in regards to what you're going on with that. Charles, let's go back to you. What are some of the hot HBCU news of the day?
Well, I started off talking a little bit about my golf game, and sure enough, we got a little golf in the HBCU news today. Virginia Union, they're in the news for a couple of their golfers. Virginia Union's Trayvon Willis, he finished very strong, finished second in the Bud Kennett Memorial City Golf Championship in High Point, North Carolina. He shot a two-day total of 134, 66, and 68 as he tied for second. And then also in the news, they got a new golfer on the way there, Virginia Union incoming freshman, Joseph Neal Graham. He won the Southern Maryland Amateur Golf Tournament. So get a little bit of golf in the show there, Dr. Bill.
I like that. I was going to ask you about that. I saw that, but I knew I needed your expertise to point out what I was witnessing. And so, I thought that was pretty unique, pretty cool. So certainly wanted to get that information out. So thanks for sharing that. Let's go to Mike, Professor Washington, as many people call him. What HBCU sports news of the day do you have?
Yeah, we have a lot of, transfers. We have a lot of renaming of top 5, top 10 colleges. The latest of that, and this comes care of HBCU Game Day. And of course, this comes also with Snapchat and Onadon. Highly touted Jordan Gilbert has Southern identified in his top 5. I'm very familiar with the Southern Alumni Association just because of corporate affiliations. So this was thrown in my face quite a bit. So Gilbert released his top 5 schools, which included Southern University, along with Alabama, Texas A&M, Mississippi, and Oklahoma. He is a 4-star recruit. He holds 27 offers. I saw somewhere else where it's actually close to 30. So some of the schools at Southern were, beat out were Auburn, Florida State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Syracuse, others. A number of schools that Southern been out. So kudos to all my Southern alumni who are tuning in. Yes, I give you one gold star for Southern. You got a 4-star recruit. So nearly 3 months ago, he released his top 10. This was in May. This was right in the height, when the heat of COVID-19 was going. And this was actually, I think, in the midst of a lot of pro-African American movement that really, has really boiled up, and for good reasons. And so I think you have a lot of athletes who are rethinking their decisions. Southern wasn't in his top 10 at that point. Now, fast forward, to end of July, August, Southern is in his actually top 5. So kudos to this young man. He is a tremendous athlete. He has tremendous on-the-field ability, vision, all of the good stuff. So again, kudos to the Southern alumni. If you hear me overdoing this, it's because I promised my Southern alumni friends that I would do it after all the noise they talked this week.
I see. You did it appropriate. You did it appropriately well too. They should not say anything else Carlos Brown with his show every Saturday from 10 to 12 out of Baton Rouge. You know, he's another one of those Southern folks out there. So we did our tide for the Southern people today. We don't even
exactly.
With that, before I bring you in, Charles, because I know you got some stuff, I want to shout out to the SIAC, especially some of those sports information directors out there. AD gave me a little plug, and they said they want some more love too. They said don't fall so much in love with the SWAC or the MEAC, Division I FCS. They said the Division II schools out of the SIAC and CIAA deserve some love. So yeah, so Fort Valley State, Albany State, Morehouse College, Miles College, Tuskegee University, Kentucky State, Central State, Lane. I'm not going to name all of them, but, you know, just to shout many of them out. Benedict College, to name a few. Edward Waters, as they talk about, they coming on board, it looks like, although they're playing both the NIA, but a football Division II schedule. So we'll see how that is going, or at least they were until the SIAC canceled the season, as they were the first ones that kind of pushed in that direction and had a joint announcement with CIAA, and we know the rest is history. But with that, Charles, let's run back to you as we get in there. Any other news that you want to show? And we're going to take a deeper dive in the second half of the show after our early interview, where we'll get into a little more detail about some of these subjects, and we want to get the listeners their chance of thoughts. So we carved out some time in the second half of the show to explore some of your thoughts a little more than we do when we have two lineups, and we decided to give you all a little more voice this week. So with that, get your questions, subject ready. I think we have one already out there in terms of the Power Five. What may that look like? So we'll make sure that we capture that, and I'm sure there's some other questions out there. But with that, Charles, what you got? What you got, Charles?
Well, let's take a look at McCord Maker, and of course there was some speculation after he said that he would be looking to go into Howard. There were still a lot of people who was like, well, you still can look at the NBA G League, but he is opted out of the NBA draft, and he looks like he will be headed to Howard. So whenever they start playing a little basketball, we're going to get an opportunity to see this young man in the MEAC. And I like bravo, like you said, Dr. Bill. Shout out to that young man, because I tell you what, he has done a tremendous job in some of his comments to some of his likely detractors. So I want to send a shout out to that young man in terms of some of the things that he said via tweet. So shout out to McCord Maker in terms of making the decision to actually choose HBCU.
Well, I got one on here I want to shout out. This goes to the VP of Intercollegiate Athletics at Texas Southern University, Kevin Granger, with his partnership that he was able to put together. I believe Chief Mary Young also had a component of this, but as you all know, last week we talked about this a little bit, that you heard about Texans Deshaun Watson, proud partner with Texas Southern University. A nice article in Houston Chronicle by Aaron Wilson. Just talks about the reason why he thought this was important, who's involved in this. So I'll read at least the first two sentences. You can go to the Houston Chronicle and get a little more. Again, the title of this article is Texans Deshaun Watson, proud to partner with Texas Southern University. Texans Pro Bowl quarterback Deshaun Watson and 4 of his teammates partnered with Texas Southern University this summer. Watson's offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil, wide receiver Kenny Stills, and outside linebacker Whitney Merciless and Duke Ellisfor trained at Texas Southern University this offseason. And it went so well in regards to the department, they started talking about what more could they do. Obviously, we know what's going around this country, and it worked out that they will attend games, provide mentoring for TSU students. Beyond investing their time, the NFL players will also provide financial resources to the historically black college. So I wanted to shout that out. I thought that is significant in terms of Texas Southern University being in a unique position where they have professional teams here in Houston, Texas, right in their backyard. So kudos to that. So again, I want to shout out Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics, Kevin Granger. He's doing a marvelous job. Obviously, Texas Southern continues to push forward. And I get a front-hand seat in a lot of ways in regards with Texas Southern University. Obviously on the academic side, as a professor there in terms of that, but also working in a lot of different ways with Kevin Granger, as he's the, again, VP of Intercollegiate Athletics. So I get to understand athletics from a different perspective, almost in a less formal process in regards to almost as if I was a consultant, but I would say it's even closer than that. So that's a tremendous opportunity, and I just want to say thanks and wanted to make sure I announced that. With that, we should have our guest joining us anytime at this moment. I think he's ready to go, so we can bring him in here so we can get to that. But as we bring him in and we're preparing to connect him, quickly, Mike and Charles, do you have any thoughts in regards to Deshaun Watson partnering with Texas Southern University? I'll go with you, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's, well, first of all, on Deshaun Watson's side, I think it's very, you look at the maturity of the young man who came out of Clemson and recognizing that there is a need to support HBCU. I give him kudos for that. And then there's a commitment to the program. Sometimes people put a program and it's a one-hit wonder. He's made a demonstrative commitment to that program for HBCU. So I basically commend him on all levels. So I know we got to get to our interview, but I want to do that justice. Kudos to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, we're going to go right to Derek Weber. I'm going to let Charles jump in here. He can go ahead and unmute himself, so we'll be ready right into that conversation. Charles, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, really excited for the Texas Southern program in terms of, like you said, getting that backing, if you will, from the Texans. And kudos to the Texans for that partnership and for Kevin Granger bringing that partnership together, and for all you guys' work over there at Texas Southern University Athletics. Looking for some big things further down the line for Kevin Granger and the Texas Southern Athletic Department.
No doubt about it. With that, we have Derek Weber coming into the show. You know how we like to go off the unbeaten path. We do it differently here. We like to engage people on the business side of sports. So we're going to give you all your information that you can in regards to your HBCU sports, which includes interviewing players, interviewing coaches, athletic directors, getting their perspectives. But you know what we do during the summer months, and we started this a little earlier. We take you outside of even the commissioner zone where we get to visit. And this is two-part. We have an entrepreneur, and then we can talk a little bit about the marketing expertise of the business of sports even more so. With that, without further ado, welcome to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Derek. The purpose of this segment is to discuss sponsorship and the National Battle of the Bands, as we had Derek Weber. He is the creator of the Crackle Barrel National Battle of the Bands that was here in Houston last year, as you all certainly tuned up and shout out. Personally, before I get in there, Derek, I want to thank you. My son got a chance to do that. I was actually working with these two gentlemen as traveling and different things of that nature. But I said, Deuce, I told him all about it. He's a big fan of the HBCU marching bands. He watches sports. I mean, you talking about a spoiled gentleman. He gets front row seats, TSU game. He get to meet the VP of athletics, all the people in athletics, the professor. I think he thinks he's a little professor in a lot of ways. Then he goes down the street to Prairie View. He get front row game seats. I said, I didn't have this kind of luxury. He has suites for the football game. I'm like, dude, he just runs down the hall to his suite, asks for a drink like this is the lifestyle he's meant to have. So I say all this.
That's apple juice now.
Yeah, except for when Mike likes to tease him. You want some of this? This is Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, you want some of this? I was like, boy, you gonna give me a trouble.
Absolutely, without question.
You know Kim's on here, so I ain't gonna get you. So, Derek, you see how we cut out. We're serious about this, but we sat down and we like to have a conversational piece. So we get in that. Before we get so much in terms of what you do and why you do what you do, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Where you from, and what you're about.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for inviting me on today. And It's an honor and pleasure to be a part of this group of fellowship. And so just to give you a little bit of history about myself, I'm an HBCU grad, Hampton University. And I came into this space. I kind of fell into this space a little bit. Used to do advertising for McDonald's in the state of North Carolina. From that, it led up to me doing work with NASCAR and Street and Smiths and those folks, doing sales and cracking the industries that way. That led up to me working with Urban Sports and Entertainment Group. And actually, I was a founding member of Urban Sports, helped develop all the projects, helped integrate and create the CIAA tournament for what it is, the fan experience, artist integration, the day parties, Super Saturday events. So CIAA was kind of my baby back in the day when I was at Urban, as well as creating the Honda Battle of the Bands with Rocky Whitaker and Micah Fuller at Urban. So, kind of fell into this space, had a love and passion for it, and never knew that I would be an entrepreneur. But, I followed God's plan for me and his direction for me. And so from Urban Sports, I just had to take a leap of faith, man, and create and do my own thing. And so we took a leap of faith, created Weber Marketing, and same thing, man, that we did for CIAA, we do for other conferences now. And started off with the SIAC conference and working with Commissioner Moore. That evolved into working with the SWAC, and we've been a long-term partner with the SWAC through the bad and now the good, so to speak. And so we endured, and so now we're in a good place with great leadership with the SWAC. And along the way, we created events and platforms in the HBCU space. The Queen City Battle of the Bands, then the Queen City Battle of the Bands evolved into the National Battle of the Bands, in which that Cracker Barrel was the title sponsor of. And our whole platform, man, is basically to raise awareness for scholarships and marketing dollars for HBCUs. So with our Battle of the Bands platform, we have generated a little over $500,000 in 6 years that went directly back to our school programs. And we probably generated a little over $1 million directly that impacted HBCUs across the country in our short little window. So, we work directly. If you want to look at us from a three-legged stool, our firm represents and works with HBCUs. We have properties that we own, and then we do a lot of brand integration for brands themselves, like Ford and Cracker Barrel and Cricket Wireless and some folks like that. So that's kind of how we got to this spot, and a little bit about what we do and how we do things, and the great opportunities that we're looking forward to for the future.
Man, there's tremendous introduction, and appreciate you taking that deep dive in so many different ways. That's exactly what we talk about and why we brought you on. I was familiar with your work with the Battle of the Bands, but I didn't realize until I read the bio the connection piece in terms of that you were actually part of the group or the group that started in Charlotte, and then obviously the connection with urban planning and how you stepped out on faith. That is such a tremendous story. And again, we welcome you to the show. With that, let me jump in here with a couple of questions where we can take a deep dive, and then I'm going to let Mike come in here with some questions as well. Okay. Charles Bishop had a little technical trouble, but he'll be back in, and then we'll allow him to follow up in a way as well. With that, you told us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started in specifically the sponsorship side of that business? Why did that drive your interest, and how did you see the importance and the need that there was a ability in the space out there where you could actually start your own marketing firm?
Yeah, well, man, I knew in order for my company to be successful, like I was always an operation guy. So, but I could always sell. Like I would always go on the sales calls, to be quite honest with you and candid. So Urban Sports was a white company that did black collar sports stuff. And I was a senior member of the company, and I used to go on a lot of sales calls. And so, I kind of fell into that space. I was an operations guy. And then when I noticed when I left that I needed sales in order to be able to survive, right? And so I had to sell. And so with the relationships that I had developed over the years, I just built it one brick at a time, took one project from 5,000 to 7 figures, and just kept chipping away at it and chipping away at it. And to be quite honest with you, like, I just don't go away. Like, I'm very relentless at what I do. I'm very persistent at what I do, and my team is the same way. And it's just, we gotta eat. Like, we gotta eat, and our schools gotta eat. And that's the whole part of it, is educating these brands and these sponsors to let them know, number one, there's value there, and number two, we haven't been paid attention well, and our spending power is tremendous. So you can play them games if you want to, but Nielsen says that if you don't have a strategy that's directed towards us, you lose. So absolutely, that's the reason why I jumped into it. I knew it was vital to make our projects sustainable. Like, we need that sponsorship money to make it sustainable. And I just kept building on that and growing on that in order to make the projects grow. And that's the only reason why I did it. That's the only reason why I'm in sales. Like, I don't like doing it, to be honest with you, but you got to do certain things. And when you do certain things, you have to make sure that you sharpen your pencil and be good at it. And so it's just being persistent, man. It's like being on the free throw line, man. You got to practice at it. So
I like that sports correlation on the sports show. That's
very good.
Yeah.
So we'll have Dr. McGregor on next week in regards to what's going on, and I'm going to connect you to Crystal McGregor. She also went to Hampton University. She did her PhD at the University of Michigan. She's from the Caribbeans. I don't want to tell all her story because we'll have her on the show next week. But she actually does research on the marketing side. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, she'll be able to give you some of the research data, more than just the data analytics that I'm sure you already do, that will help connect those businesses as they ask the research questions that you're talking about, as we germinate and talk about the HBCU culture that I've derived from a theoretical framework. So that uniqueness of what we're building here is extremely important. So I'll make that happen. With that, Mike, jump on in here and get a question as we move forward.
Yeah, thanks, Doc. So Derek, oftentimes organizations confuse, or people confuse, sponsorship, sales, and marketing. Simple terms, right? Your group has a niche in this, specifically with regard to HBCUs. How do you bundle? What is your approach for HBCUs and their sponsorship and marketing to other, corporate suitors? And how do you bridge that gap? What is your approach, or what is the organization's approach?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And so, listen, I'm here to state pure facts, and it goes back to the research and having that information on hand. And I'm just lucky to be in a position to where I can pull and get that information. But like, I go into a particular brand and I identify what their sweet spot is. And whatever their sweet spot is, we can fix that. Like, because, within this African-American consumer space, we spend $1.3 trillion. Okay. So that means we over-index in everything. And so that means that from research, and once we get the information pulled together, whatever particular brand this might be, I'm going to use Cracker Barrel as an example, okay? So they knew going in that they were missing the mark. They were missing the mark because social media was responding to them differently. They was responding to them saying like, yeah, I like the stuff, but I don't feel good sometimes when I'm in there, or it's not a brand connection with me as a consumer. But once you go in Cracker Barrel, you love the pancakes. I love the catfish and grits. Like, they're just items that we just relate to. And we will identify with that brand and still support that brand, knowing all the obstacles that are in front of us. So what we did was we just said, okay, if you did this differently, like instead of like sunny side eggs up, why don't you do the scrambled eggs with cheese? We identify with that more. And so, you know, we don't have black coffee. We like coffee with cream and sugar and all the swirlings on the top. So we identified the areas that show in research what works, and then we present that to our branded partners. And 9 times out of 10, almost 10 times out of 10, once you do that and roll it out properly, as far as identifying what their needs are and what their sweet spots are, you can make that common connection. And once you make that common connection, it's a no-brainer because we over-index in everything. You know, so that's what we do. We just take simple approach. We don't say, yeah, you can get a banner here. Yeah, we got this. You know, this is what we can do for Coke. You can't do nothing for Coke, okay? Coke is $1 billion company, all right? What you need to say is, listen, this is our platform. We target African Americans. We are in your demographic range. And this is the audience that you have been missing out on. And these are some additional things that we can help drive transaction and sales for your brand. That's all it is to it. So once you identify those areas, transactions, man, that's what it's all about. So yeah, it's feel good. We have community engagement to make you feel good about donating back to HBCUs, supporting curriculums. Guess what? We can increase your transactions. And that's what it's basically all about.
But I do. Let me just for the record, I do like my coffee black. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Yeah, but that's because you are ex-military person. You had no choice but to have your coffee black.
I'm outside your demographic. I'm just.
It's a few of us. Charles, before I let you jump back in here, as you came in, we talked a little bit about the sponsorship side of the business. We touched on that. You heard what Mike asked about. If you would allow me, Michael D. Jones had a question, and I want to jump in here because I don't want it to scroll out of the way, and I think it's a substantive question. And we said we're going to get some engagement, and then I'll bring you in, Charles, to let you ask a follow-up question. But Derek, this is for you. Michael D. Jones, big-time Alcorn State alumni, says, could you ask the question, why don't companies respect the value of the black dollar? You talked about the value and how we over-index, but I thought he asked a substantive question that I wanted to make sure we got on the table.
Great question.
And then I'll bring it back to Charles to follow up. But
great question.
Derek, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that, depending on the particular brand, like sometimes they've never even been approached properly. Like they've never been, been able to join at the hip with a property or for African American event to where they can really see the value of that. So yeah, it's a huge educational curve when it comes to that too. So like to give you an example, like I'm working on a particular pitch with a brand. It's a military insurance brand. All right. So I've been working on this particular pitch for 3 years. And so year in and year out, it's an education process to laying out a strategy that fits their needs and the property's needs. So 9 times out of 10 with this whole process is educating. It's educating that particular brand why there's more value than what they're thinking. And I'm gonna be quite honest with you. The whole black movement, what's going on in our community, that's helped tenfold. Because a lot of brands now who really haven't been involved are now getting more involved because they know that if this whole community agenda is disrupted, it's going to disrupt their bottom line, period. And so right now it's totally, up to us to continue to educate, continue to hammer away at all of these brands. Sometimes I cold call folks, and my U.S. Air Force partner that just came on board that's supporting our esports initiatives and our National Battle of the Bands HBCU STEM program, it was a cold call. And so sometimes you have to take uncharted waters and do things different ways in order to reach that person. And once you reach that person, you got to realize that if they continue to tell you no, that's because they're not educated. Okay, like period. So you have to find that common ground and continue to educate them in order to turn that partner into a valued partner to where they know why they're doing this.
Oh man, that's great information there.
Great.
Charles, as I come back to you to go ahead and follow up with a question, let me shout out some of the people that are jumping in here. James N. Cross, Fred Whitting, Brian Fulford. That's Brian and AD. AD, I shouted out early. He's in here from Sports Rap as they do this stuff on Black College Sports Network, BCSN. Kimberly Reynolds, the alumni president, Prairie View A&M University, checking in from Dallas along with Lawrence D. White, another big-time Prairie View alum, Chris Montgomery, Ronald Roan, Darren White, excuse me there, Darren, Trudy Jackson, Dennis Franklin, Lonnie Shaw, North Carolina A&T, he's a big-time guy out there, Russ Russi. Some of these people say they remember you from the CIAA. I'm not going to say what AD said about you. He throwing jokes around here. He's saying the lookalikes, Ice Cube, something like that. I was like, oh, man.
I'm rocking the afro. I ain't had a haircut since March.
I can relate. Mine just happens to be a little gray or white, whichever color you want to say it is.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Charles, go ahead.
I'm wearing a visor.
Sure thing. I wanted to kind of ask this question in terms of how did the partnership come about? How did the partnership come about with Cracker Barrel and the National Band Showcase? And I'm especially curious in terms of marketing band showcases, because there's a football community, there's a band community, and sometimes football community takes a look over at the band community with 40, 50,000 people at a Honda Battle of the Bands on the bench. And people are like, well, wait, where were these people at? So how do you go about getting that, tapping into that market, if you will?
Well, I'm going to be quite honest with you. Cracker Barrel, we took on a Cracker Barrel project in 2016, and we were
partnering up with Reach Media. We used to handle all of Reach Media's activation on HBCU campuses. So we would do like a Ricky Smiley tour, we'd do a Geico tour. And at the last minute, like 3 weeks out, they asked us to come on board to help out to do this Cracker Barrel initiative that just came on board. And we were executing a step and stroll. We went to like 5 universities that we had great relationships with. We knocked it down, and the relationship started from there. And year in and year out, we just did more stuff with Cracker Barrel. See, this is also key. Like when you're talking sponsorships, and you have to like a sponsor, it's like buying a car, but a sponsor still has to put gas in the car to make it run. So you can buy a sponsorship, but the sponsor still has to put money into it to make sure that it works, right? So same thing, like you bring a sponsor in, you have to be able to have great client service to keep upticking that sponsor year in and year out to support your initiatives, right? So we started off small with a step and stroll. We were a third-party vendor through Reach. The following year, we got brought on to do a little bit more with the HBCU tour. The following year, we end up doing, general marketing, consulting with store launches in Victorville, California, and Portland, and Jansen Beach. So we started to do more general market stuff. From there, they came back to us and said, well, tell us about how we can get more engaged with HBCUs. Boom. You should do our Battle of the Bands project. So, we're moving to Houston. We created a partnership with the Harris County Houston Sports Authority. One of their first.
There you go.
And they gave us the opportunity to get state funding to help fuel it. The Texans came on to be a partner as well with the Lone Star Sports folks. And so basically we just kept chipping away at it through our client service work with them from day one. And so when the opportunity came up, we did all their stuff for Sister Strut. And so when the opportunity came up, we was like, yeah, you guys should partner up with us on this. And they looked at it, and we showed them the ROI value and case studies that they would get as far as brand recognition and brand exposure. And it knocked it out of the box.
Let me ask this follow-up question real quick, Dr. Ville, in terms of how important is it to make that partnership with these various local governments? You mentioned the Sports Authority in Houston. As you look at various state taxing authorities, or if you will, how important is it to make that connection?
Oh man, it's key. And you know what? It's super easy, but if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. And to be quite honest with you, that's the main reason why I left Charlotte. And so we had this great event that we did in Charlotte. We funded it totally on our own. And the event outgrew the stadium that we were in. And we were trying to get the Panthers Stadium, and it felt like pushing a rock uphill. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, we want you, but we really don't want you." It was that sort of deal, right? So, I was working with the SWAC in Houston, and the SWAC was, when Dora was in charge, was, going through some things in Houston, and I already knew the people, and so, a colleague made the introduction, and we was like, "This is a no-brainer." And if you are able to put heads in beds and butts in seats, it's a value to that. So in Charlotte, we had an economic impact, I think, of around 4 or 5 million. I think about 4.5 million in a 20,000 seated stadium. We had a weekend where we had an economic impact of 4.5 million.
Wow. Wow.
So I went to Houston and gave them the numbers, and they was like, "Yeah, this is what we can offer. If you can bring this many people, this is how we can support you. This is how we can support you with the stadium. This is how we can help support you with marketing and integration into the community. And this is how we can support you, with creating partnership with Lone Star." You know what I mean? And so I used that same model. And so we got a project in Miami at Miami Gardens, the Orange Blossom Classic, that's coming back. So we took that same model. We're doing it like that there. And with the partners in Miami Gardens. And so it's vital because, listen, man, if you're bringing in, the first year in Houston, we had 6.3 million in economic impact for the Battle of the Bands. And I'm going to be honest with you, we use all minority vendors. All right. Mm-hmm. So that's just what it is. All right. So, and so the ridership up with the Metro Rail was up 10%. We gave away $100,000 in scholarships to the participating schools, local high schools, and step groups. We did a step show at Texas Southern, and we did a tour, and we was at Prairie View, all over the HBCUs in Texas. So once you lay it out and you show that value, that'd be almost, they have to do it because it's their bottom line. And so once we found out the model, and to be honest with you, I got the model from CIAA. And so once we created it at CIAA, like once you generate $42 million for a week and based off your events and ancillary events, it's simple math to be
right. Mm-hmm.
So you just have to be able to position it right and communicate it to the right people and the right partners. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like Houston is a second home for me. I've been coming here for years, man. So my uncle, Dr. John Biggers, started the art department at Texas Southern. So he's the one that got me to to Hampton, and so Houston has always been a second home for me. And opportunity came up, and the Sports Authority folks were so authentic with it. The first thing I thought was like, how did this not work with anybody else? First of all, and then second of all, I was like, Charlotte, they just thought, they look at it from a conceited standpoint and thought they would always have the events that they have, and not knowing that Jackie and I went to Hampton together, the commissioner at CIAA, like. We talk. Come on, man.
Right.
And they didn't see the value. And so, I knew them near everybody. So they didn't see the value. Houston did. The model worked that we learned from CIAA. And a model that can work with any city and any HBCU property if you do it the right way.
Wow.
Thanks. Quickly, I want to sum that up, and I think it was beautiful when you start talking about first learning your craft, before you decided to go out entrepreneurial? I mean, obviously you can do it in a different way, but you studied your craft and learned it as apprenticeship, and then you said it's time to move on because you've learned pretty much everything you could do, but you understood there were some things that were left on the table with the company you're with, and you could create your own market about it. Yeah. Then you laid the groundwork and you were able to build it to a sustainable level. You invested, you built it, and then you weren't scared about saying, all right, it's time to move when you're not appreciated after building it. And I think those are three significant components about your story and your road. With that, quickly, our last question, as I know we held you over a little more time than we originally said, but the conversation has been worth it in my appreciate it. It's been worth it in our opinion. I'm glad that you did that. But the last question I wanted to touch on a little bit is the esports that people are starting to hear about a little more. Yeah. And talk about why do you see that as trending in a positive direction? Obviously, we saw with the SWAC announced with the eSport Air Force. Mm-hmm. We don't have to get in that part of the transaction if we would, but just in regards to what your experience about saying, you know, not only you continue to build with the HBCU Battle of the Bands, classics now even, but now you also saying leading the front end of this esport market. What about esports says that it is necessary for HBCUs to tap into?
It's huge, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I got turned on to esports by coming to Houston, like my southern mecca. You know what I'm saying? So, but seriously, so we're integrating esports into everything that we do. So with the Battle of the Bands, you know, we're gonna have an esports tournament that weekend too. So I mean, everything that we do is esports driven. Number one, because I mean, it's just like to give you an example, when social media was blowing up, and it was going from TV media to social media, right? And it was a learning curve where people was like, "What you mean social media?" Right? But the power of media, right, is huge because it just lives forever. It lives more than TV. It has more value, right? And so it was a huge new push. And just think about the trends in sponsor spending, right? It went from even, you can say, from radio to TV, from TV to social media, right? Yeah. Like the trend throughout the generations and throughout the eras, right? And then, I mean, like some of these, I mean, they'll never go away, but the dollars shift, right? Yeah. So advertisers shift because they're looking for a new generation of consumer, right? That new generation of consumer now is the gamer. And that gamer is online like forever. And now, so it's going to, you saw radio to TV, TV to social media, and guess what the next one is? Social media to gaming. And if you're not on board, if you don't have a platform, you're going to be dead in the water because number one, the media value and the money that's poured into it is super crazy, right? Yeah. And it actually has a component in it that's STEM related. So it's educational, figure that. And so now the whole thing is, you know, educating parents to saying like, listen, like this is an industry. Like this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You're telling me by 2021, the viewership is going to be more than any other sport other than the NFL? What? The NFL has 16.5 viewership with an average football game every week. So if you're trying to tell me having numbers of that caliber, that means like the spot rates and the CPMIs and all of these numbers are going to be higher and the money is going to be there, right? And so then I was doing some research and found out where like the PWIs, like it's starting to increase their enrollment. And so we've been digging in on this thing for the last 2 years, and we got Air Force to a space where they were going to sponsor, basically their title sponsor the SWAC gaming, but we approached it with our developers by creating that SWAC ecosystem that they own. And that's the difference between SWAC and some of these others, right? So SWAC owns their publishing rights, SWAC owns their media rights, SWAC owns their how they can integrate their talent. They can integrate curriculum into it. and it's all free. And it can be offered to all the universities based off this platform that we created with the partnership of the Air Force. So not only that, so gamers from all of the schools can game on this swag platform, and they can win swag bucks that can go back to their schools. They can win a trip to the SWAC football championship for a chance to win $1,500 in scholarship money. And basically, they have a gaming community that they have the rights to. It's not like with these other companies coming in saying, jump on our platform and do this and jump on our platform and do that, because they know the value of it. And to where what we're saying is to our SWAC schools and our SWAC universities, don't do none of that. And I know some of them already jumped out there, which is fine, because but if you stay consistent with the plan that we're rolling out, the universities have the rights to all their gaming tournaments. The universities have all the rights to their media platforms. And all of these outside entities will want to come to the SWAC community because you have the viewership. You have the built-in audience. You have control and rights of it, compared to if you jump onto their ship. So that's what we've been working on, creating over the year and a half or 2 years or whatever the case may be. And it's important because, like you said, man, like this is a 7-figure industry that each university could end up gaining. Okay, like this is a whole other ball game. Okay, if you do it right, like if you do it right. And so we convinced the conference office, which that we didn't even have to convince, because they believed in us and supported it, and Air Force believed in it, and now we have this SWAC, system in place that protects us, and we can grow with it and just like take it over. To be honest with you, so it's a takeover opportunity.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's
a beautiful thing.
It is.
That's why we do what we do, is bring this new information and platforms a different way. So wanted to say thank you, Derek, in regards to what you bring to the table. Beautiful information. Last thing I'll leave you with to let you know how you making strides here. This young brother is going to make the SWAC money. Another reason is great move for FAMU. So
had to throw that FAMU loop back in.
Boy, they strike again, don't they?
That's Kevin Crawford. I think he's saying he's all in for the SWAC. He's like, yeah, we did what we did. Yeah. Great move. Dwight Moore. So all these, Thomas White saying great information. Chuck Hunt says, man, sports behind the scenes is beautiful. So just want to say thank you for your time, Derek. We'll bring you back up as this continues to grow and move forward, so we can tease out more of this information, let people know how they can get to it. But let people know if they need to contact you. What's the best way they can contact you if they need more information on?
Yeah, they
just want to follow you.
They can just go to webermarketing.net and on our website and get all the information. Of course, follow all our properties with the Cracker Barrel National Battle of the Bands, but definitely webermarketing.net. And we want to be a resource and a tool to help our community. So whatever we can do to help push that agenda along, I think that's why we're here to serve. So thank you guys.
One thing I will say thank you for, and I'm sorry to interject. You do involve HBCUs and bands west of the Mississippi. I'm just gonna put that on the table. this is not an A&T, FAM, Howard. There's some Prairie Views in there. There's some Gremlins. Okay, I just wanted to throw that in there. Sorry about that, Doc. I know.
You need to get that in there. That's good. That's good. You got to poke the bear a little bit. So Derek Weber, you got your charge. You know what you need to make sure you're doing. You want to keep coming back on this show.
Exactly.
Mike Wash ain't gonna bring you back. He's like, hold on now.
Hey, I got you. This we're gonna spread the love, man. With our band program, we've touched over 21 bands, and
absolutely,
we're only getting started. And 21 bands in 6 years, man. And so
that's nice.
We're only getting started. We're only getting started.
I appreciate that. We're gonna get ready to cue it up as we say thanks to Derek Weber in terms of giving us all that great information. A lot of the people are chiming in. They really appreciate what you brought to it. We're going to go to this commercial break real quick, and we'll be back to kind of wrap things up. Talk about a little bit of one of the questions that were out there, and then we'll provide you some shows as we see what's next as we start to come up. So with that, this is Dr. Ville inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington Charles Bishop. Thanking you for Derek Weber joining us. Let's go to the commercial break.
Thank
what
you, guys.
Up, world? It's your boy, Rob
Thank
Calloway,
you.
host
Thank you,
of
Derek.
the HBCU Report. And right now, you're inside the HBCU Sports Lab with my guy, all hail the dean of HBCU Sports. You know I named him that. Dr. Kenyatta Kabil, my guy. What's happening, man?
This is Dr. Ville inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show. As we come up to the top of the hour, little discussion that was coming out there that I wanted to get out there. One of the first questions that was on the floor was about Power 5. And you're hearing all this news that, you know, they're talking about the shakeup and whether they're going to leave the NCAA. And I know it seems to make a lot of sense, but this is why I'd say that. If you really understand the NCAA, be careful in a lot of ways. The NCAA has essentially zero control of football, particularly the Power 5. They do not control the bowl money. They do not control the playoffs. The only thing they control in regards to football is the playoffs, and that's at the FCS level and below, Division II, Division III. There's not a great deal of money in that. Anybody that has studied the FCS and below understand that institutions have to essentially pay to play in that system. So financially it doesn't work. And so the NCAA, other than sanctioning the guidelines and the bylaws that they use to the governing structure of the FCS, Division II or Division III, as well as the participation rate in regards to qualifications, there's no real money there. The money is in basketball. So the contract was with CBS and Turner is with NCAA. It's not with the Power 5. And that contract is extended out. How does the Power 5 get the CBS and Turner to break that tournament, that contract that they have with NCAA, and such that they can go away and take that money? I'm not arguing that they don't have the brand to do it necessarily, but there's a contract on table. How do they break that contract in regards to trying to take that with them? That's the fault lines that makes this unrealistic. What they're trying to do is the same thing they did when they came up with this term, the Autonomy 5, which is on the books. I call it the Power 5 because they are seeking more power. So this is a threat in regards to just simply getting more power so they can do what they want. In this case, unfortunately, I see it at the fault lines where it's seriously fragile from the standpoint that it's in the middle of a pandemic. It's about the health. They don't pay these players anything at the Power 5, but they get all this money. They don't want to lose the contracts, but they have taken so much of the money that the FCS, even the next Power 5, the next 5, as they call them, the Group of 5, they can't afford to play football because they don't have the money and the resources that the Power 5 have taken because they wanted it all. Now these groups don't have the monetary value to do any of the safeguards that's necessary to even try to pull off something in the pandemic. And so now they're mad. They took all the money, and now they're mad because everybody else can't afford to do it. And they saying, well, you know, y'all just do it anyway, regardless of what's going to happen to the player, which is just utterly ridiculous when you look at it and you really understand the facts. That in a lot of ways, this is not even just about power and money. It's literally about greed.
Greed.
And I think that is just
ludicrous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And I'm glad you said ludicrous, Mike, because I didn't want to say those words because we are being taped. Because I was going to say stronger words. So you saved me a lot there. Because it really is ridiculous in so many ways. So as we come to the top of the hour, we'll chime back in. We'll see if we're going to be able to bring Rob in, and whether we are or not, we'll talk about some of the hot news that's out there. But as we come to a close, we just want to say thank you for the interview there. As we sign off on our terrestrial KCH AM with Ralph Cooper, want to bring you back. So we're going to sign off here at the top of the hour, play this commercial break, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you.
It's for the culture. Start your week the HBCU way. Get the latest updates from your HBCU sports news of the week with your host, Dr. Cavill, Mike, and Charles. On Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Central on KCOH 1230 AM, Facebook Live, and as a podcast on streaming platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Podcast App.
Wanted to shout out a little bit, talked about this, but we can get into a little more of this as we close out and do the bonus 15 minutes of the show that we do oftentimes at the top of the hour here. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Wanted to talk about Howard University. Top six of the 5-star recruits, Harrison Ingram, has put one of his finalists, he laid out his top six. One of them is Howard University in regards to that. He's a 6'7" small forward, hails from Dallas, Texas. Junior averages 19.5 points, 10.9 rebounds, 7 assists per contest. The lead St. Mark's Lions to their first Southwest Preparatory Conference title since 2007. Ingram currently considered top 10 prospect in 2021 class. You see a lot more of this taking place. We see a couple of these names out there. Grambling lands a 4-star, Carday Gordon, 4-star recruit ranked number 75 in ESPN Top 100, ranked 2018, spent first semester 2018-19 season at SLU before deciding to transfer. To start the season, you're seeing these transfers more and more with the high stars on it. You're seeing high schools signing, as we talked about with Howard University. We see them in terms of the top 10 picks. What is going on here, Charles? What is in the water? What you thinking in terms of what's taking place?
Dr. Beal, I remember having a conversation with you maybe 2 or 3 years ago where I said I think there's a renaissance going on in terms of young athletes looking at HBCUs. And at that point, I was talking about Texas Southern, because Texas Southern seemed to almost be at the forefront of bringing in transfers, if you will, that had these star ratings to them. But I think we're starting to see a distribution of wealth across the SWAC, MEAC, CIAA, and SISC as well, in terms of a lot of young men really taking a look, and young ladies as well, taking a look at HBCUs in a serious manner and just not adding them for the sake of adding them because everybody, is on them. Of course, we have a tremendous social movement going on right now within the country that I think adds to the flames, if you will, of the young athletes taking a look at HBCUs. But I'm excited. I'm excited for whenever we do get back to sports, whenever it's safe enough to get back to sports. We're going to see a caliber of ball, both football, basketball, across all platforms that I don't think we've seen probably within the last 5 to 7 years. I'm really excited about where the trajectory is of our HBCU athletic programs.
No doubt about it. Mike, what are your thoughts? And then we'll bring in Rob, as it looks like he's working back out with us again. He can sit up there get his workout in.
Every time you see Rob, it looks like he's coming from workout, man. We don't want to see him sweat. We don't.
Tell him bust a move.
Yeah, they're trying to wear little muscle shirts and wear little brother shirts and
mediums.
Anyway, so with regard to the question, I think Charles, I think you're seeing kind of a convergence. You're seeing the emergence where, number one, we have COVID-19, and you have the social impact that you see all around you, all happening at the same time. And these students are starting to take notice. In addition, you had what CB called a renaissance. I think students are starting to notice the value that HBCUs have, all with the social media, all with the COVID-19. Young African-American males and females are starting to see, well, the Power 5 obviously doesn't care. They want us to play. You see what's happening in the Pac-12 with that movement. You see, you don't think they're noticing that, hey, the MEAC and the SWAC said, we're going to shut it down. We care about our athletes, but we see what the Power 5 is about. And now you have folks starting to speak up. Now you have younger students who are eyeing this and saying, hey, you know, what's wrong with the HBCU? What's wrong with it? There's value there. They're seeing kind of that horizon, so to speak. And I think that's what you're seeing, that convergence. And I think you're going to see it's not just football. It's not just basketball. It's women's sports. And when the spring comes, don't be surprised. Mark this day that you'll see sports like track and field, baseball, and other spring sports. Also, you'll see that same phenomenon occurring there too. I don't think this is a one-hit wonder.
Right.
Certainly. Let's take it to Rob Calloway in terms of what his thoughts on what he's going to do for the show today. As we do that, we have Dwight Moore, Victor Hogan. Chuck Hunt is still changing with us. He said he saw that guy from St. Louis University transferring to play basketball. Dwight Moore says reallocation of our talent portfolio. How well this goals could plant some seeds for the future yields. BJ Jones, football HBCU guru, has jumped in here. Rob Calloway, what's your thoughts and what can we expect with the show today? Boy, I see you in the studio. You got the TV back on, your equipment in the TV back on.
And did you notice the lean? Did you notice that lean? He was like,
oh yeah, I see it. Hands
looking
on
like producer extraordinaire.
Yeah, producer. That's a producer lean. It was like, yeah.
Y'all are crazy, man. Y'all are crazy. You know what? What was the question, Doc?
I was just saying, what are your thoughts in terms of the changing the guard? And I'm gonna go a little specific on this particular, because there's two thoughts process, you know, outside of that. You know, you should build it and they will come. Obviously, do you have this direct conflict where you know you got the Power Fives, they have all these things, students love nice things, so you need to build more, you need to put in more development in terms of your space. Now, obviously, that costs money. But then there's the other angle. Do you market your culture that is the only thing that you can't get that? You cannot duplicate that at a historically white college. That is something that is natural to the HBCU experience. So as you're trying to develop these things, this chicken and egg scenario, do you spend the money, build up, then they come, or do you find a way with the culture to bring them, then you get the money and you continue to build? What are your thoughts in terms of the scenario? What is taking place historically? Why is this important?
Well, you know, I believe that if you could sell the culture, I mean, the culture is priceless. Like, let's just be honest. Like, yeah, you got Greek fraternities on the campuses of these PWIs, but it ain't the same. Now, I ain't Greek, but I'm going to just say, when I used to go,
go on, correct yourself, Rob.
When I used to go, you know, to the Greek parties, you know, on the campus of the HBCUs versus when I used to go up to Athens, the UGA, to the parties of the West Georgia and Carrollton. Yeah, the parties were like night and day. Yeah, they had Q juice, the Q punch, but the vibe wasn't the same. The chicks wasn't the same. Like, you know, it's certain things that you just cannot. I mean, you can't replicate, you can't duplicate. And so the thing that the HBCU experience is all about, man, is it's all about, number one, it's all about the brotherhood, first of all, and then it's all about the fact that everybody has that shared experience, and typically, you know, I can just speak from my experience. You know, you have those staff members that always want to make sure that they leave their mark with you and really make sure that they emphasize the institution that you enrolled in, right? So it's like, I got teachers right now, like, I never forget, because they put that Bama State, I'm talking about, they put it in your soul. And so
Dr. Freddie Frazier at prayer.
Freddie Frazier.
So, you know, it's one of those things where when you go to a school like UGA, you know, if you a star running back, I mean, at the end of the day, man, like, you know how many star running backs they got? Like, you know, I mean, you might be the number one dude, but if you go down, trust me, they got 2, 3, 4, and 5 to go replace your butt. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, but the thing about HBCUs is that while they might not all have the facilities, they all offer something very unique that the other one does not. Like at Bama State, like, I could boast and brag, we got the top stadium in FCS. Like, I can't, like, you know, Hornet Stadium, you know what it is, Bama State Stadium. you know, and the Acadome, I mean, they sit 7,500, but I mean, it's a nice facility, you know. But you know, if you go to a school like Howard, like, let's be honest, it's freaking Howard, it's HU. Like, they're gonna give you something that FAMU, Bama State, Alabama A&M, Texas Southern, Prairie View, that they not gonna give you. You know, and so that's the beautiful part about each HBCU. That's why we all hold our schools in a certain regard, because because we have been given something. Like, I received something at Bama State that y'all that somebody didn't receive at Jackson State or Prairie View or Texas or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so
that's right.
It's one of those things, like, you could sell it. Like Jennifer Williams and Mo Williams at Bama State, man, they selling the hell out of Bama State, the HBCU experience. They selling the hell out of it. And that's what you got to do. I think, you know, Willie Simmons at FAMU, he sell the hell out the HBCU experience. And so does people like Lavelle Moten. And, man, I forget my dude's name at Winston-Salem, the basketball coach up there. But the same thing. Like, dude, they're selling the culture. You know, they're selling the culture, and people are buying into it, you know.
I don't want to be but let's not look over the fact that Alabama, and Chuck Hunt agrees with me, Alabama State and Prairie View do have nice facilities as well. So that does.
I haven't been. It does, but I haven't been to Prairie View, so I don't know. I'm just saying.
You haven't seen it? You need to go online. I mean, I'm just thinking.
You need to take a look at the 60,000 seat stadium in Jackson too. So
I've been to y'all stadium.
I was on a conversation. I agree the culture is important, but so are the facilities.
Yeah, they are. They go along. They go a long way, but I'm just saying, you know.
But I think there's key about that is that sometimes we say it as if there's an either or, rather than a both and.
Right.
But the point is you cannot really compete against Power Fives on the facility. The head start is so hard. It's why you need to build up your facilities. And as Rob said about Alabama State, they are on the front end in regards to being able to say at the FCS or in the SWAC in terms of Prairie View and Alabama State, when you look at those facilities, that there's something second to none. But there is a culture about HBCUs, and there's a unique culture about Southern. If you can dip into that can resonate with a particular recruit. The same way that you can dip into that at Prairie View or Grambling in regards to the State Fair Classic versus the Bayou Classic. Both of them are huge, big events, but one's in Dallas, one's in New Orleans. So there's a unique culture about that. The Turkey Day Classic, there's unique about that. But you have the Magic City Classic, unique about that. Now, in terms of the SWAC, you have the Florida Classic. What's unique about that? Howard University and their homecoming, while we'll talk about it, is different, but for individuals on the East Coast, there's uniqueness about that. And if you have the understanding and appreciation at the culture, and that's why Professor Bishop and Professor Washington are so eager to tell their stories about their institution, that it really gets you in a level that you don't even want in this middle of this conversation to give an inch. But imagine if you had a coach that understands that and can package that in such a way that say, we get this. And there's one thing that is unique that I haven't quite heard that has been stirring around with me, and I'd like to get your ideas on this as we get to close, because I know you go into your show. Are you doing the show tonight, Rob? Or
oh, no, man. I started back working, man. I started back teaching, man.
Okay.
So, we
so this... That's good. So we're gonna be able to give a little more time. We're gonna
we can go.
We don't want to go into your show.
Yeah, I won't be back till Saturday.
Yeah, we'll call this part of your show extended mixed in as you do it.
Let's do it.
Right?
Let's go.
So there's one thing that I've been talking about that I'm intrigued about. I plan for that I think is interesting when you talk about players in the context of players. Oftentimes, players have been bet on the brand so much. So when you think about Alabama, it becomes about the brand at Alabama. Now, we know that the facility at Alabama is serious. And they're sending a lot of players to the next level. But I ask you this. They also get the top-ranked players. So how much of it is really about Alabama, or is it about the players? What they sell to the players is that, you're the top player, but you need to come here to get to the next level. But this is what I want you to think about when you really boil that down. If it's so much about Alabama and Nick Saban, Why isn't every player that goes to Alabama going to the NFL? We know by definition it's only 1%. So if it was truly about Nick Saban in Alabama, every player that went there would be going into, if it was Clemson, every player would go there. But it's only the cream of the crop. So there's something more about your talents and your work ethic that allows you to make it. And it's the reason why individuals that don't go to Alabama, that do make it, because they have a talent and a work ethic that wherever they go, it shines. And so you got to understand, how do you reframe the mindset? Because we talk about branding, and branding works. Branding's so big that we got players that don't even acknowledge their own talent and believe that the reason they have made it is not so much because of them, but because of an institution and a coach, not necessarily culture. So I'm going to go straight to Rob first in regards to just digesting all that, and then come to Charles and Mike and get some further dialogue on that as I give some love to the math doc, as we call him, Dr. Roderick Holmes, as he's chimed in here. Dwight Moore is jumping in here. Chuck Hunt is giving us a lot. Floyd Hill, Anthony Weston, Henry Brooks, Deborah Harrison, Thomas White, Tony Shante, Michael Jones, Cedric Johnson are all in here giving us mad love in regards to what's going on. Brandon Bailey, big time DJ out there in New Mexico, is getting it done as we do that. So, Rob, what are your thoughts?
Well, you sent out, I got this article from you the other day. Was that yesterday you sent out that article?
Yeah.
Yes, and man, it's not about the Nick Sabans. You know what I'm saying? It's not about the Kirby Smarts. It's not about any of that, because here's the thing, is that if I give Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, if I give you all this talent and say, here go this talent, what you gonna do with it? You probably go win out, and you don't even know how to coach. I'm just saying. I don't know if you know how to coach or not, but I'm just saying. So, at the end of the day, it's one of these things where, because you are this big shiny new car, or you are this, whatever it is, you this shiny toy, or you have shiny toys. You have the locker room with the massage chairs, and you got video games in everybody's locker, and you got all the stuff your kids like. Yeah, that's gonna lure some folks in, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And then you're right. At some point, somebody is gonna stop believing that it's their God-given talent, and then they gonna start giving props to the coach. When 9 times out of 10, you could have took your talent somewhere else and probably had the same results. But when it comes down to it, man, Nick Saban ain't showed us. What if Nick Saban showed us, like, athletically? I'm gonna just ask you this. What he ain't showed us anything athletically. like you're not gonna see Nick Saban running wind sprints out there with the team. You're not gonna see any of those coaches that make the $4, $5, $6, $7 million off of these black boys back. You ain't gonna see them out there running no wind sprints. What? They probably never even ran a wind sprint. A lot of them, you know what I'm saying? That's the other part, is that you got a lot of folks that never even played at that level. You know what I'm saying? They never played at that level, and they got lucky. They got a little lucky, because coaching is about luck. Let's just be honest. It's about luck. And then they end up in these positions. I mean, I look at Mark Richt, right? Who was, in my opinion, I love Mark Richt. When Mark Richt was the coach at UGA, he was one of the top 5 coaches in the country. Let me tell it. I mean, the dude won 9, 10 games every year. They just never won a national championship. This dude right here, great coach at Georgia. He had all the talent. Boy went down to Miami and didn't have that kind of talent. He had a bunch of knuckleheads, and he ended up quitting. You know what I'm saying? He was like, you know what? I just can't even do this no more. I'm out. In the middle of the season, he stopped. Like, Mark Richt, like one of the winningest coaches of all time, just
perfect example.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, the coach is only responsible for about this much, and that's the game plan, because everything else, the execution and the athletic ability, all of that stuff, the coach has nothing to do with that. It's the player. Which is, I mentioned that article that you sent us, where it talked about how these players should be leaving with at least $1.5 million in their bank account after when they graduated, when they leave the institution. Because if you can give Dabo $5 million, like again,
guess what? Exactly.
Dabo is this much of he's this much of the equation. Everything else has to do with going out and executing, and only the players can do that. So if they can give him that money, look, I think they could find $1 million for all of those players because they got it. The Power Five, they definitely have it.
Yep. So we got about 10 minutes more in this segment. I'm going to go to you, Charles. Give me your thoughts on it. Way to wrap it up, Rob. I appreciate you bringing that article out because it's a great part of the conversation.
Here's my question, and Dr. Cabrillo, you mentioned the branding aspect of it, but how do you retrain the mind? One of the things that I've often heard from young men that go to these Power 5 schools is I made a business decision. I made a decision to go to this more powerfully branded sort of university in the hopes of helping myself to get a look-see, to go to the next level. What goes into
because I think that's a real good question, but I think we got to start dealing with the facts. And like I said, not only do we talk about the culture, but let's talk about the facts. How many of those guys that talk about the businesses, and only 1% of them are still going to the pros? So that fact is not changing. So how much of the business decision really means that you're increasing your percentage to go? When you really look at the details of the numbers, they already told you only 1%. And you're participating with the cream of the crop. So you already shorten yourself. So when you go there, we already told you that you're leaving $1 million on the table. First of all, so I don't know how much of a business decision is that. Anywhere else, you don't leave $1 million. Then let's talk about a little more about that. You can't go back to your institution and become a coach.
Nope.
Those institutions are not hiring you in any capacity in the leadership position. You'll be lucky if you are a recruiting coordinator, which means you'll make a little money, but you're not going to get the big money. You can't get the head offensive, defensive coordinator job. You can't get the head coaching jobs. The years and the numbers tell you that. We already see it. They percentage-wise, it's 1%. You're not those individuals. And many of them are coming to HBCUs to get their shot. So I think a lot of it is putting the information in their face because somebody else is telling them other things different. So I think the facts need to be out there. And the more information you talk about is Rob Calloway. As I sent the article out, I've been talking about this in the backstage, but now is more information out there. And when people start reading it, they knew it was bad. But now people said the actual numbers $1 million, basketball, damn near $2 million. Now people are not even talking about this. Now they upset. Now they mad. They went from just being like, "Oh, y'all playing the game on us."
Right.
And I don't know anything about the culture, but we not generally the culture that like people to play games on us. But it happens a lot. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
So my question is a little bit on the other side. So let's look at it from a business standpoint. You have market demand. To make it into the NFL, which is what a lot of these players going to the Power Fives want to do. To make it there, the NFL says, you know, you've got to be a defensive tackle that played in this kind of scheme. You run this kind of statistics in the 40. You've done this at this kind of school. And there's only a few schools that fit into that category. So my question is, how do the HBCUs circumvent that? Because the predominating thought is to meet that market demand, those players have to go through a Power 5 institution to even be equitable for that market. If you're looking at it,
I don't think that's the case. That's what I'm saying. I think the lie has been told that over and over that we start to believe that that's the case.
Agreed. But I'm asking, how do you get around?
That's what I'm saying. One of the things that you do is you got to quit repeating it.
Mm-hmm.
A lie becomes the truth because you keep telling the lie.
Yeah. Or you reinforce the opposite of that lie.
That's what I'm saying.
No,
it's simple.
Yeah,
counter narrative. No, it's pretty simple. You quit repeating the lie. You tell the truth that your talent and the ability that nobody can teach you essentially, or somebody trains, allows you to run the speed that you run. That's what they look at, the reps that you run. If that was the case, how do you explain if there's only certain institutions that run a scheme, and we know all of them run schemes, all of them run different schemes.
Everybody runs pretty much this, yeah.
Right. So if that's the case, everybody could only go to one institution, but you have people going to different places for different reasons. The problem is, as I said, the wool has been pulled over their eyes. So you have to start educating and stop repeating the false narrative that this is true, because it's not true.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. Totally and agree with you. But where I stumble is, that's why you like one and dones. You got to go to Kentucky or whatever to be a one and done. Why don't you have that in HBCUs? You have just as much talent.
That's my point. Is everybody has told them that you got to go into Kentucky, but you even have professional players telling them now that's not the case. And It's so bad that we know previously. I gave this example last week, just another case study. If you name the top best players in the NBA over time, or certainly if you extend it to 15, if you look at that list, no matter who you put on there, half of that list would be individuals that never even played in college.
Correct.
True.
A different generation.
Very true.
Yeah.
So the point is that you have to start telling accuracies instead of following along with the tired tropes, because it's natural. It's easy for us because it's said so often. If you're in the business, you start repeating the same narrative and you don't even realize you're doing it, and you think you're so smart because you're just giving information, but you haven't taken the time to really dig so deep to really find out the truths, to reimagine, to be innovative. Things that we say that is cool, but we don't really do it. So we're going to leave it there as we're at the top of the hour. Yeah. I think we've had great dialogue. A lot of people coming in here, and I think we got people have plenty to chew on the fat in regards to this conversation. But that's the thought process that's out there. Go look at the study done by Dr. Skuskowski with Ramon Mogi Huga in regards to the college football that talks about the million studies and the $1 million that they're leaving on the table, the $1 billion heist, all the money that's been turned around, the terminology that I put out there. That's why I do so much research to talk about the sporting HBCU diaspora, the HBCU sports culture, the HBCU athletic aesthetics, creating these words. And so people ask, what are you talking about? How do you define this? What is the real information out there? Why the Pac-12 folks are starting to understand? Because they're educated.
Yeah.
Once you're educated, it's hard to become uneducated.
Absolutely.
You are. Now it's about making the decision and being strategic of when you're going to strike. And this is the perfect timing. But our job, in my opinion, is to continue to educate the masses. That's why we put this show together in so many ways. And so, again, as we come to the top of it, we appreciate you spending that additional time, sharing this time with us today. Rob will be back on the set this Saturday, so check him out with HBCU Report as we continue to bring him with this additional dialogue. So we'll give you some bonus hours as we bring him into the show. Not usually this extended time, but the conversation got really deep. A lot of people were interested in terms of what we're doing. But as North Carolina Central coach says in so many ways, is once these students find out, you're going to see a sea change in regards to what's going on with that. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, the Dean of HBCU, College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we come to a close, we hope you enjoyed the interview with Derek Weber of Weber Marketing, HBCU Report, Rob Calloway, as we bring him in. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday at 6 o'clock right here on BCSN. Check us out at HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We look forward to next week as we will discuss the latest news in HBCU in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, Cavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, that's Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, DrKenyattaCavil. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Course lecture dismissed.
It's for the culture. Start your week the HBCU way. Get the latest updates from your HBCU Sports News of the Week with your host, Dr. Cavill, Mike, and Charles. On Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Central on KCOH 1230 AM, Facebook Live, and as a podcast on streaming platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Podcast App.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food?
Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp,
tofu, and rasta pasta?
Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock
in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m.
Come to Mango's and put some